every day is going to be a little worse, is where my head's at this point. So I refuse the drugs. Hey guys, Corey here, AuDHD Act 2. Today I want to tell you a story. I'm sitting here in front of the fire. It's a cold Colorado morning, got a lot of snow yesterday, and just started the fire. It's just starting to pick up. I want to tell you the story about what brought me to finally share my autism with people around me, which in that process led me to discover my ADHD, which explained a lot more. Well, let's just jump right in. So it's just shy of 3 years ago. It's October of 2023. I am going into the doctor because I just started a new role. It's actually a position that turned into the role that I'm doing now that I'm super happy in. But I just started a new role and my left hand was tingly. It was numb. And I had worked a lot with computers in previous roles, and it felt like I was assuming it was going to be a carpal tunnel type syndrome, have to wear a brace, take a couple weeks of, wearing the brace, icing, different things. They set me up with a neurologist appointment to confirm. And so I've got a few weeks waiting for this appointment. Like always, it's never fast waiting to get an appointment when you really want one. Within a few days of that first initial appointment, before I even saw the neurologist, just seeing my general physician, my right hand is now numb. And a few days after that, my left foot is numb, then my right foot, and everything is kind of radiating towards my core in what seems to be a little more numbness. If you can just imagine it traveling up, my extremities. Over the period of a few weeks, I'm nearly completely numb from about bicep down and almost entirely to the waist. I don't want to get too deep into the details, but it's starting to be where I'm concerned about walking, driving, bathroom management, situations, control, all of the things you think of when you're like, I'm losing neurological control right now. All the things that might get harder. And so about 3 weeks after that first appointment, I start losing my ability to kind of walk smoothly, and I start dragging myself almost at times like a zombie. I felt like at times I was dragging my leg behind me. It wasn't great. It was very stumbly. You think of neurological disorders and people moving in jerky motions instead of the smooth, normal gait. That's how I was moving, and less controlled, more jerky, more forced movements. Just kind of trying to move a leg instead of trying to move it smoothly. I was just flipping leg in front of the other kind of thing. And I got to the point where I had to tell my client, I essentially I promoted from within my own replacement and worked out a deal to where I could work from home as much as possible because driving was getting to be a real concern. And so here I am a few weeks after this first appointment where I thought I have carpal tunnel, and I'm figuring out how I'm going to work from home. I'm designing a workstation that is much more adapted. For example, I got a Stream Deck, which has like a lot of shortcut buttons because I wasn't sure I would be able to type much anymore, and I didn't want to have to try to type out, www.gmail. I wanted to so I got all these tools that would make it a little easier for me to work, that would allow me to work a little bit longer than I would have if this deterioration continued. And they had no explanation for me at that point. And in fact, I went to the initial neurology appointment and they found out I didn't have carpal tunnel. They couldn't find anything causing the numbness. They only found cubital tunnel syndrome in my left elbow, which is likely why it showed up first here, is because there was already some transmission issues going on here because it was pinching in the elbow. But they didn't have any answers for me. So I'm nervous, I'm concerned, and I'm assuming that this deterioration is going to continue. And I'm waiting now because the next appointment is February. It's at this point early November, first week in November. The next appointment is February to see a specialist. And I knew that wasn't going to happen. I knew there was going to be something that happened before then, and it did. A few days later, it's November 10th. I remember it very clearly because it's my mother's birthday. November 10th, I fall down the stairs. And my wife drives me to the emergency room, and they tell me I'm gonna need an MRI, and they tell me, like, they're going through the list of potential things and preparing me for, I think, it felt like I was walking towards a multiple sclerosis diagnosis. There's a lot of things that they can diagnose, and there's a lot of things that you just have to check off all the other stuff before they'll diagnose. So I was kind of expecting that to happen, and for this deterioration to just continue, and I was getting my mind in a place to try to be able to handle that. So there's this MRI, and they're telling me it's going to be a head to toe MRI, full spine, full, like everything they can get into a single MRI, they're going to get into an MRI. But that means I can't move for a few hours, 2 to 3. And it ended up being closer to 2, but like 2 hours and 20 minutes, something like that, I think. But they told me I could take meds, it would knock me out, so I wouldn't move. But I'm sitting there thinking that any moment now, my nervous system deterioration is going to take me to a point where I'm not going to feel anything, where I'm not going to be the same me. Like, every day is going to be a little worse, is where my head's at this point. So I refuse the drugs, and I sit there in that machine. It was excruciating, just trying not to move, trying to fight the tremors. Like, at this point, like, I'm getting shakes, I'm getting like random things, like shock waves. Not like seizures. I didn't have anything like a seizure, but I would just like a kick. And so they're constantly telling me to stop moving, and I'm trying not to move, and I'm getting claustrophobic, which I'm not a naturally claustrophobic person. I haven't had like many issues. But in this machine, with all of this going on, it was intense. It was one of the most difficult couple of hours of my life. And of course, at the same time, all this other stuff is playing in the background about what's going to happen, what's coming next, what ifs. And as a person who is, I'm autistic, I have ADHD. I'm a ruminator. I ruminate on everything. I play out every possible scenario, and to be honest, it's been oftentimes a strength. I rarely have to face something that I haven't, at least in some way, shape, or form, like to some degree, played out a similar scenario in my head already. Like, it's not a healthy level of rumination. I'm fully aware of that, but I also know that it's been shaped in my life from a point of just never sleeping and staying awake and just thinking and thinking and thinking, to a point of being able to point it towards things and use it in a helpful way to solve problems. So I'm doing the best I can with it, I guess is what I'm saying. But in that tube, oh God, it was awful. But I get back to the room, to the ER, my little room in the ER, and they come back and tell me, we figured out what the problem is. And basically, cervical spine between, I want to say it was 4, 5, and 6, the discs were being compressed so badly that my spine was almost entirely cut off, blocked off. So I was completely just from the neck down. My flow, the impulses in my nervous system were just wrong and off. They take me upstairs and they check me in and they tell me I'm going to get surgery the next day. So I go into surgery, and it is, it's like 7 a.m. It's early in the morning. I roll into surgery. I'm hopeful. The surgeon was amazing. It feels like I'm rolling out of surgery 5 minutes later. And I very, very clearly remember high-fiving people laying on my hospital bed, just high-fiving everybody that would high-five me as they rolled me back towards the recovery, and just being super happy. And I remember feeling amazing and not having any thought. Like, I don't remember like being like, it worked. Like, I just remember waking up in just joy. And that was relatively short-lived because the recovery was very difficult. I did hyperbaric oxygen treatment that helped for a few months. I think that helped a lot. I think it really helped with the healing. They went in right here. It was not through the back at this. It was through the front, through the neck. And there was a big scar, but it's almost invisible. You've got to look really closely to see it. And I think the hyperbaric oxygen helped a lot. And the surgeon was amazing too. Was the majority of it, but the oxygen, I do think that helped with the healing a lot. And I slowly start getting range of motion back. Like, I'll never be able to, I'll lose a little bit of the kind of side to side motion, but after about a year and a half, I could finally hold a phone to my head, which wasn't a thing for a long time. And I have to avoid some impact, but for the most part, my neck's stronger than it's ever been, or it ever could have been, because it's got titanium spacers, and I'll put a photo up of it, an x-ray up, but it's spacers and titanium and screws and bolts and things. And so right off the bat, I felt amazing. And I felt like a new lease on life. And I know a lot of that's psychological, but I also, it literally felt like somebody popped a cork out of my neck, and all of the, things were flowing and doing what they were supposed to be doing. But then, because of that, all of my baseline adaptations that I have made for dealing with my autism over many, many years. I self-diagnosed as a teenager, and then it was professionally diagnosed shortly after this surgery, because I'll get to that in a minute. But I had figured out a lot of things that worked for me. I had figured out how to avoid things that triggered me, and I had just many of them at this point, subconscious adaptations, that once that metaphorical whatever cork was pulled and my nervous system was running, I guess, unmetered, full flow, nozzle all the way open, drinking from the fire hose, I guess. But once that happened, all of those adaptations failed to work anymore. They failed to work on subconscious autopilot mode. They failed to work as effectively when I intentionally tried to go back 30 years and had to force things. I was doing that because it does get easier. These adaptations get easier over the years, but everything had to be reset. I'm suddenly finding myself unable to drive. The vibrations and all of the input and stimulus that I had gotten used to and hadn't had a problem with in a long time was very, very difficult suddenly. The lights, the sun, I was wearing sunglasses everywhere for the first time ever. I didn't want people to know I had autism when I was self-diagnosed, and I didn't tell anybody because I was dealing with it on my own, and I wasn't 100% sure. I was fairly confident, and as I made these adaptations and they worked, I became more confident, and I did more research, and then for a long time I didn't even look at it. Honestly, most of my adult life I've just been trying to figure out things that work for me, and I haven't looked at it in an autistic frame. I'm just okay, if I do this, I have a better day. But it wasn't anything that was top of mind until this neck fun, and then everything, it was at times flashbacks back to element, all the lights, all the noises, all the conversations. I could no longer block out some stuff. I could no longer ignore some stuff. I could no longer. For me, it's been more redirecting, and I'll play music because I can focus on the music instead of anything else, or I'll things like that. But I digress. So none of that's working anymore. And I am not feeling well. I'm not able to cope. I'm able to cope. Things that are small that wouldn't have normally bothered me suddenly wouldn't get out of my head and would bother me all day long. I rapidly got into burnout. To shorten this story, I didn't realize it then, but it was in just this complete, I don't want to call it depression, but like it was like a permanent battle with autistic inertia that I'd never had to deal with before. Like I could not get started. I could not get started in anything. I couldn't move. Like this sticking point, the friction. I couldn't break the initial friction and start anything. And it was a struggle. I had some routines, and I had like I use Obsidian for my external brain, so I have like my checklist that I had to do each day. But I survived on those. I survived on these checklists that says do this, now do this, now do this, now. Like if I had to think of what to do next, I would just be stuck, and I was many hours of many days. And I got to work a very erratic schedule to just get through, because I'd be able to get some done here, some here, some here. And that actually helped over time. I've embraced that, and then I have a much more work throughout the day and live throughout the day kind of mindset than this time is for work and this time is for living. It's much more intertwined. So I was able to take some good things out of that experience. But it took me getting into therapy. I had some person close to me in the middle. I was not my best self. I'm in the middle of burnout and just completely fried to the point like I had never experienced before in my life. And I was told I was broken and I needed to go seek therapy. And they were half right. I definitely needed to go seek therapy. But I was burnt out. I was not broken. And I went to therapy. And the therapist told me, let's look at this and let's look at this. And over many sessions, it worked. We worked towards the her assessment, and then did some more formal assessment, and was able to confirm exactly what was going on in terms of my autism ADHD. And we put in she helped me with some boundaries and with setting some realistic expectations, and with managing some of the things that I do in my day. And it all started to kind of compound, and I started to feel better, and I started to get control again, and I started to move I don't want to say at will. There are still days that are multiple times in multiple days where it takes effort to start moving. But those days are fewer and fewer, and they are farther in between in terms of the intense ones. There's always a little bit. It's not just autism. It's on a spectrum. Everything. Some days are really easy, and usually those are the days when I find the momentum and keep it going, and I accomplish things that are important to me, that are on my daily list. Like I do my workouts, and I do my painting, and let me show you. I'm excited about this one. I did this one yesterday. When I make time for this kind of stuff, the days, my fire died. It's just smoldering. It's still going. When I make time for my art and for writing and for making these videos and for my dog, training my dog. You'll meet Best if you haven't seen her on the channel before, but she's asleep right here. And this is Clover, if you can see her in frame. But for training my dog, for going on hikes, for doing all these little things, and my work, I love my work. I get so much fulfillment out of my work, which is an amazing blessing, because that hasn't been the case before. There have been jobs I've enjoyed and gotten fulfillment from, but not to this level. And to be honest, as a person, as someone who experiences, if you're going through burnout and you don't love your job, it's going to make it a lot harder. So if you could find the things you love, that like is one thing I've been able to anchor to during all of this stress from my current divorce, from my neck surgery, from the all of the neurological challenges in the last couple of years, and autism, ADHD, all of the things. But the one of the few constants, like my children are an anchor that I always lean into. I put my energy there, and I know that will bring me back to center. My work has been that as well, and that's been a thing that has been super helpful. This has not been the first challenge in my life, but other ones, work was not a thing I anchored to get through previous challenges, but now it's my not work like in like, oh, you gotta go through the grind, but like my work where I put my energy and what I put that into out into my clients, and it's extremely fulfilling. And here it goes. So if you've had stenosis, spinal occlusion, any other kind of significant neurological issue, and it impacted your autism or your ADHD or whatever else you're going through, please share a comment. I'm very curious to see how many people have had experiences like this. If I'm being completely honest, like I said, I had spent a decade or two before this surgery barely thinking about my autism and not even knowing about my ADHD, but not thinking about my autism because I had adaptations in place. I had made changes. I was subconsciously on autopilot at that point. And it was just, it's like if somebody has migraines. It's not like I walked around being like, I'm the autistic guy, I'm the autistic. Like, it was just a thing that I dealt with. And once this surgery happened, it was front and center. All of the sensory input stuff, like went from a 2 to a 10. Everything was turned up, everything. Emotions, like I've teared up like 4 times in this video. I might have gone, I don't know, many months, a year, a couple years maybe, at times during the previous, my previous 40 years, like without crying. But I could watch a commercial and get emotionally engaged. Like it feels like the empathy and the control over the empathy has gone, it's gone way down. Like my control, like I've been at my son Keith has done. Is working on the 3rd and 4th, I think, theater show, play, whatever, in the past year. And so I've gone to, I think, 3 of them now. Every one of them brought me to tears at least once. And I'm consciously sitting there like, what is going on with me? And I know it's just like it makes me wonder, like, what was going on before that, and how long? How long had it been pinched? Like, how long had, the signal of me, that is inside of my brain being transmitted, how long was it getting jumbled right here before all the other stuff? Like, that, it's, it's been a very strange couple of years. Like my internal software had to be rewritten, and it is getting much better, I will tell you that. And a lot of that has been through therapy, and it's been through allowing my autism to be front and center, and allowing myself to look at what makes me feel better and what gives me energy versus draining me, and the things that get me momentum and that keep me moving versus the things that, if I do, or if I let myself get pulled into, there are lots of things that will just drag me to a complete halt and hold me like quicksand. Like, I've got to be intentional. I have to constantly be assessing myself. And that's okay. That's gonna be forever. I mean, I already had that mindset and knowledge that like there's no finish line. Like I have to keep learning. I have to keep getting better. The more I assess my day and keep trying to improve my day, the better my day will be. And that's how I'm going to get things done too. Because all part of that is my consistency and the projects I'm working on, and getting time in front of things like my art. I love each of these things, but and now this is part where the ADHD is helping me to make sense of this, of my personality, I guess. Is like I love recognizing all of these different aspects and like tangents, I don't know, of that make me up. And like the art has been something that's come and gone for years. I've never gotten into it as I have over the past year, and really found the tears just come constantly. Anyhow, art has been super helpful, and it makes me smile and it makes me happy, and I am getting a little better, and that gives me that, gives me a little dopamine, a little kick of the good stuff, and a little confidence. And I'll be honest, like confidence has never been an issue. Like I know I can do just about anything I decide I want to do. The issue has been lately, and a lot of people on the spectrum are gonna relate to this, is all the stuff that's been thrown in my path that I'm like, where did all this come from that has been throwing me off? Like when it gets down to it, I'm a very capable person, and I know that because I've been through a lot of struggle and a lot of challenge and come out the other side okay. And I'm extremely confident in my ability to solve problems and get through difficult situations. But it's never before involved so much extra fun, extra obstacles, the emotional stuff like rewiring my everything basically. Knowing to never leave the house without sunglasses in my pocket, knowing to always have, they're on my desk, but earplugs and earbuds, and even on some days the full over the head like earphones. I don't do those often, but when those work, people don't bother you when you put those on. I don't have to just pretend that I can just deal with it and suck it up and put, that was the method for a long time, and it was effective for a good amount of that time. But I wonder how effective would it have been if this cork in my neck had been popped out earlier. Like how effective would it have been if is that why I got through some of the stuff I got through, is because my nervous system was cranked down to a lower. I don't know, but it's this stuff going through my head right now. So the fire is taking its time, but that's all right. It's still toasty where I'm at, and that's my story. So yeah, please chime in if you've had any experience, any neurological disorders or issues, challenges that really upset your day-to-day, autism, and how you managed it, and it really changed the way that you had to deal with things. And I'd love to hear that your input on that, because I don't know of any other stories like that. I've met people who've had this stenosis, and I people with autism, but never that have gone through both. And so I'd be curious to hear what you have to say about it. Please leave a comment, subscribe, share, all the things, and enjoy your day.